Hello and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing with me, Jonny McFarlane. Today I am joined by Joshua Barrie. Morning, Josh. How you feeling?
Fine, mate. Yeah. Looking forward to the weekend. Happy we're through the fog, so not all good today.
Yeah, not long to go in that international break. Well, I suppose it's done now, but not long in terms of before the action gets started right back up again. Big news story coming out yesterday was that Rangers will be likely missing 3 Nigeria internationals. Of course, that means it's Leon Balogun, Joe Aribo, and Calvin Bassey for up to 5 games after the international, the winter break. Now, I believe that the African Cup of Nations, which has taken place, which Nigeria have obviously qualified for, will begin during the international break that takes place for what? Sorry, I keep on calling it the international break. Why am I doing that? The winter break. So it means that at least the first couple of games are not going to be an issue. But should Nigeria qualify, it does mean that there could be a lengthy delay in terms of getting those players back. And if they were to get through to the final, then it's up to 5 games, Joshua. But what does that actually mean for you, for Rangers going forward? Does this mean that perhaps a loan, especially in that defensive area, is something that Steven Gerrard has to think about? Or perhaps a return for Nico Katic? What's your overall take?
Yeah, I think quite possibly, Jonny, because you look at obviously Calvin Bassey being the 5th choice option as it stands, or that's what it seems to where he seems to sit. And I guess it depends on how Hollander comes back from his injury. I know the communication from the club has been that he'll be back in December, but as everyone knows with injuries, it's not kind of cut and dry as to when the player will be fit. I guess it comes at a good time in the sense that Hollander will have the winter break to get up to speed, and perhaps won't have the same pressure to return for games right away with if Balogun was away without a winter break. But yeah, I mean the big one is Aribo. Aribo is a nailed on start, and he always kind of has been. But I think especially this year, that midfield of Kamara, Aribo, and Davies, or now Lundstrom, always seems to be first choice. And Aribo, I think, although Aribo is frustrated, shall we say, with his final ball. If you look at his stats, I think he still has the highest number of key passes from open play. And I think from middle to front, you could make a case he's our most important player, especially when Tavernier's not on top form and he isn't carrying us up the pitch as much. I think Aribo is just so important and kind of goes under the radar. He also allows you that flexibility in midfield to go to a flat 3 if you want to. He allows you to play a 4-2-3-1. He allows you to play a kind of advanced asymmetrical 4-3-3 with him slightly more advanced on the left side. So Aribo is the big miss, and notably there for me. But yeah, as you say, centre back's been the problem position so far. It's a time for Jack Simpson probably again to step up, Jonny, and well, I think everyone will have everything crossed that Big Phil is up and running as good as he can be by that stage.
Yeah, we'll see how that pans out. Certainly an interesting dilemma for Steven Gerrard and the management team to try and cope with. Right, we're going to move on now. We've got a comment here from Max Murray. He says, hello, chaps. A very decent international break for our players. Joshua, absolutely. I think we've seen a number of goals go viral, haven't we, with Kemar Roofe scoring last night for Jamaica, his first goal, a lovely little, very Roofian flick in the box. It's just absolutely the quintessential Kemar Roofe goal. Shows how alive he is in that 6-yard box. But listen, there were other great goals as well. Yanis Hadji scored a terrific individual goal. So how do you reflect on what has been a pretty productive period?
Absolutely. I think it's, you look at Jonny at the club puts out like a press release or a news story saying this is who's going to be away on international duty, and you're reading it and you're thinking this is awfully long. There's not going to be many players left at the training centre, but that's excellent. Again, you look at the comparison of a few years ago where signing an international was a complete novelty in many regards. I think you look at Sakala. We spoke about his goal and how that although maybe not the wonder goal that it was portrayed, that is the type of goal you want to see from Sakala and the type of goal he's capable of. Yanis Hadji, he's in this season of his career where it feels like he's maturing even more so. Even though as a 21-year-old, he was really asserting responsibility and stamping authority on that team. But that goal against Germany is excellent, and as you said, very quick feet. Good to see him impacting space in that way, because I know pace is sometimes something that people throw as not so much a criticism, but it's not the strongest aspect of his game by any stretch. Stephen Davis obviously playing as he always does, and great to see. I think that was Ruth's first goal for Jamaica, so excellent to see that. I mean, I think everyone on this podcast absolutely loves Kemar Roof. Everyone on the whole, I think everyone in Ibrox, to be honest, does, and it's just a case of him staying fit this season and impacting the team as we know he can. But yeah, excellent to just go and see the players impact games at this level and represent their countries. From a selfish point of view, I'm sure you're going to have a lot of tired bodies coming back to Glasgow today in the next couple of days. But you hope the players that have been left behind, you've still got players like Kent, Tav, Goldson, Lundstrom, all top class players who aren't internationals, who I'm sure will be really fresh, ready to go on Saturday when Hearts come to Ibrox.
Yeah, we're going to move on now to a piece that you've got today on the Rangers Review website, which involves looking at the players who are going to be out of contract at the end of this season. There are 8 stars who will have to, there'll have to be a decision made, frankly, on their futures. You would imagine in the next few months, but obviously with the older players, this can be left for a little bit more time than that. Now, what we're going to do, Josh, I just want to go through them with you. Just give us a flavour of the article without giving everything away. Because obviously it's there for people to read and enjoy. We're going to start off with the keepers: Alan McGregor, John McLaughlin, Andy Firth. That's 3 players, Josh, that are out of contract. And what do Rangers do? Because if they're to leave all 3 of these guys to depart, that's a pretty big hole.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of, Jonny, I guess, comes into this conversation about the number one anyway, which has been rumbling on. Who is the number one? Is there a number one? Are we, the club kind of rolling out this almost hybrid agreement, it seems, between the goalkeepers, where McGregor effectively plays when he's fully fit. I know he was kept out because of a niggle a few games back. I think it was Dundee. I mean, Andy Firth, let's start with him. I think he's quite endeared himself with the Rangers fan base, but equally you look at the fact that he wasn't on the bench against Celtic in the Old Firm, and Kieran Wright was instead, and you kind of think he's not probably part of there's not a route to the Rangers number one jersey for him. So it's whether he's comfortable having another year as a third choice keeper at 25. But what happens, you look at Lee Grant, Scott Carson at the Manchester clubs, but they're also at the end of their career, probably a little bit more happy with not playing games. McLaughlin for me is a nailed on. You have to keep him. I think it goes under the radar actually how good he's been for Rangers in terms of the number of clean sheets. He, like Alan McGregor, has performed above average in terms of goals saved, above average last year. Just played less games, so obviously that metric was slightly lower. I think the natural progression will see him become the number one next year fully. Robbie McCrory take over that role in the next couple of years. But McLaughlin's at prime age for goalkeeper. He's 30. I think he's 34 now. McGregor surely can't be number one next season because he'll be 41 in the following January. So it's an interesting one, and it seems to be managed quite well because I can't imagine that McGregor's going to kick up a fuss about missing games at this stage of his career, and John McLaughlin's bided his time, and I'm sure that there is agreements in place for the type of game plan, the type of game time, and the type of role in the squad that he can expect. And I guess with Firth, it just depends if he's happy staying around for another year. He seems to obviously be a good influence around the place because he's seemingly very popular. But in my mind, you definitely keep McLaughlin. As McGregor stays a backup, probably not. You want young Robbie McCrory to take that mantle. So I do think it'll probably be McGregor's last season at Rangers. Turns 40 obviously in January.
Yeah, looking at the midfield, Josh, at the start of the season, we sat here and talked about how Rangers were looking like they were reforming the midfield a little bit and planning for the future. And certainly I would say with the signing of Glenn Kamara on a longer-term contract, the arrival of John Lundstrom and Bakuna, you're starting to see, I think, the beginnings of a turnover in there. And if you look at the players that are out of contract, Stephen Davis and Scott Arfield, perhaps it would be understandable that the beginning of that change would truly begin at the end of this season.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's such a, this will be this is Arfield's fourth season. And it's so tempting to just, I think with players who've served the club well and who are likeable to just think, oh, we'll just keep them around. But this is also the cycles of football clubs, isn't it? Scott Arfield's turning 33 now. I think he's a very intelligent player. I don't know, although his game is, Scott Arfield's not going to drop back and become a six, I don't think.
No.
Equally, he's a very, very intelligent player, and I think maybe he's less reliant on the kind of physicality and bursting runs than you kind of think of when you think of an advanced midfielder who makes third man runs for a living, turning 33. Stephen Davis, I thought it was interesting the way that Gerrard spoke about him after the Hibs game, because he effectively referenced him coming on as almost an impact sub to help close out the game, be calm on the ball, sit in the midfield and use it well as Rangers tried to obviously professionally run down the game. I don't think it's improbable that Davis signs another 1-year contract. He's still playing for club and country, which tells you that he's still, at a level where he can do that. I'm sure he would not be doing that if now having broken all the records that he can, if he wasn't able to. So again, I don't think it's improbable that Davis signs another 1-year deal, in the same way that Defoe is obviously being kept around in the coaching capacity, but is also being kept around because of his influence in the place. I don't think that's improbable that happens with Stephen Davis, because if he can still do that, Jonny, to replace that technical ability in the midfield in terms of a player who can play 30 games, 20 games, it's a lot of money. So I guess that depends on performances this season. I thought Stephen Davis against Sparta Prague looked very, very sharp, having had that little bit of a rest. We've spoken at length about the fact he played like 60 games last season, and that's probably too much when you're 36 going on 37. So yeah, for me that's one stay, one goal, but completely agree with you. You've got to evolve that midfield area, because it needs it. Scott Arfield came into the club at 29. He served him very well, but I don't see him being rewarded with another contract next season with Hadji and Aribo ahead of him really in his position.
Yeah, and finally up front, there's two players out of contract in Jermaine Defoe and Brandon Barker. Now, we've not seen very many minutes for either player this season. I don't think Barker's been on at all, has he?
No.
Defoe has been very limited in terms of his use. Now, you've already mentioned the fact that Jermaine is now a key member of the Ibrox coaching team, and his influence will obviously spread farther and wider in that capacity going forward. So we kind of know about that, and I think we've got a sense that Jermaine Defoe, this might be his last year as a player, but you never know. Let's see what happens. Brandon Barker, though, is a more interesting one for me, Josh, just generally, because it's a player that was used intermittently and tactically by the Rangers management team, as if they trusted him to come in for the really big games.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems like now, maybe after the loan spell, I think it was Oxford he went away to, there's been a sort of change now, and Brandon Barker is on the outside looking in.
Yeah, it's a good point, because obviously you think of Porto away, I think Porto at home, Celtic away last season. When you're right, the role that he was being asked to play was effective. Well, I think in both Porto games was to stretch the pitch. But he was trusted in big games. You don't chuck a player in if you don't think they're technically good enough to play in that game. Against Celtic last season, obviously it was a separate game plan, which we've spoken about before, where Tavernier and Barisic stayed deep to attract the Celtic wing backs, which allowed the Kent and Barker to basically run it. I think it was Duffy and Ayer, and Neil Lennon didn't change it till 88 minutes. So I think that was a game plan well worked in hindsight from Rangers. Barker, for me, probably was could have gone in the summer if a Suter came in. Maybe it'll be the same in January. And as you say, Defoe's played 14 minutes, so it's no secret that his future is in the technical area. I think the interesting one for me, we know Goldson with Goldson, Jonny, that's, I think, whether the player agrees or not, it seems.
Yeah.
And I think everyone would be absolutely delighted if Conor Goldson decided to commit his best years to Rangers, but also this is his last big contract, and you can understand, I think, the deliberation. Although I think with slightly biased glasses, we can both say we'd probably want to commit our best years to Rangers if we were 28-year-old centre defenders. Liam Balogun's a more interesting one for me, because I think, especially in the context of last month, for me, one of the best free signings that Rangers have had in a long time. You look at the he was part of that defence last season, played a big part in that defence that conceded only 13 goals. You look at the way that he's responded to what was in the same way that Lundstrom's had to respond to a really adverse reaction, but Balogun after that Malmo game, it took a lot of heat. And was constantly being told that Hollander was better than him. I think if you look at games like the Hibs game, the Celtic Old Firm game, where he was played in at right back, he's been our most consistent defender. Really, maybe even at the start of the season, because Goldson's had a few pretty poor games. For me, Balogun, the rotation suits him because at 33, I think with the athletic and style that he plays with, defending high up the pitch and playing international football still, it suits him to not have to play 3 games a week. I would definitely like to see him stay at the club for one more year, even as the 4th choice centre back. I mean, what do you think about that, Jonny? For me, definitely, but Balogun as well, another year.
I totally agree. The thing about Balogun is quite remarkable, is at 33 he's still so quick.
Yeah.
I mean, for a big guy, I can't really think of many defenders that Rangers have had over the years that are quite so rapid over a short period of ground.
Yeah.
Maybe Jockey Bjorklund, going back quite a long way before your time, Joshua. He was a very, very quick Swedish centre-back that in the Walter Smith era of the late 90s. But no, I think you want to keep Balogun around. He's got a lot to offer. Don't see any reason why he can't play for another couple of years. As you say, I was leaving Connor Goldson for last just because I thought it was the big talking point.
Yeah.
I'd obviously, like everyone else, you'd want to see Connor Goldson hanging around, but you just feel at this stage, if he's not signed by now, it doesn't feel like he is going to sign. However, and I've said this over and over again, Rangers keep all these things very close to their chest. And I didn't think Glenn Kamara was going to sign because it looked like that had been taking a long time. So it absolutely could be that he's still signed on the dotted line, that it's just they're either holding it off for a good time, or they've just to agree some finalities, and Goldson himself is deciding. However, I can see the common sense element to it, which is just, look, Connor Goldson is of an age where he's going to go into his final big move.
Yeah.
This is the one that he needs to get right for both his career and financially. And if he goes to England now, age 29, he gets a 4-year contract and he can settle down quite happily, having known that he's not only done some incredible things at Rangers, been part of a legendary title-winning team, at least one, and he'll hope that he'll walk away having delivered them into the Champions League. If he does walk away. But then if he wants to move on at that point, you go down South Premier League and you experience what it's like to play regularly in the best league in the world. That's if someone wants him.
Yeah, but I don't think, I mean, I think that that's, you look at like Shane Duffy, how he's went and started the season really promisingly for Brighton. No one can tell me that Connor Goldson couldn't go and play in that division, not at all. No. I think he's a much improved player from the one that came up to Ibrox. But I think you're right, it's an interesting point, and I touched on that in the article. Is it almost a good time for both parties to leave? Obviously not from a financial point of view from Rangers, because they'd be losing Connor Goldson for free. But if Goldson can win a couple of trophies, or 3 trophies, fingers crossed, this season, or if he can do something, what he's not done so far, and deliver them into the Champions League, is the lure of the Champions League enough to keep him from going and playing mid-table football in the Premiership? But then we forget, because we're not from there, it's a big deal playing in the English Premiership. There's a lot of appeal to it. Some weekends you'll be playing away at Old Trafford instead of Hamilton. That has got some glitz and glamour to it as well. But then equally, as Brian Laudrup famously told Walter Smith, there's more appeal for him to playing for Rangers. So it's one of these things. Like everyone, I hope he stays, but I can see the kind of almost symmetry in him winning the league this season and then going down on to getting a 4-year contract and settling down in England.
I think the ideal situation, Joshua, is to get in Doc Brown's DeLorean time machine, go back to when Connor Goldson signed his initial contract, squiggle out the 4 and add a 5. And then you're getting to the end of this season and Connor can go down south, continue his career down there, and Rangers get a big, healthy transfer fee, or a reasonably healthy transfer fee for his services. But, I think a 4-year contract is pretty standard nowadays. Not many players get 5-year contracts, and it's obviously a huge gamble. But yeah, that probably would have been the way it would have worked out perfectly. But it hasn't worked out that way, so never mind. Right, guys, listen, we're going to call it a day. We're running out of time here, so thank you for watching. You can get more from the Rangers Review if you subscribe to our website, www.therangersreview.co.uk. where it's only £1 a month to support top quality Rangers journalism. We've got tactical analysis, we've got big interviews, and we've got daily videos and much, much more. So come on there and give us your support. Also, we have a YouTube channel, guys, where you will get instant updates on what's happening through your system. So it'll tell you if we go live at any point. So get on there and hit the subscribe button, as that will be really, really good for keeping you aware of when we go live. We don't just go live every morning at 9:30. We also go live for big breaking events and after games. So get on there and do that. Until tomorrow, thanks for watching.